hello. Welcome to Shelby Radio. I am Shelby Carino, and this is episode number 687. And we are going to be in real time with a conversation about what is going on in the month of March that is shaking up a lot of energy. And it has to do with the total lunar eclipse that is on its way, and also the lovely Mercury retrograde that we're rebounding into as well, and what all of this is going to mean for you. So, thank you for tuning in here. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, if you are watching me and listening to me on YouTube right now, hello. It is good to see you. I am glad I am able to yet again be on camera. So, I think I'm, you know, moving forward because I'm getting all shook up too with all of these energies. It's a big, big month. There is so much happening in the collective consciousness, and all of this is affecting us personally, good, bad, or indifferent. We're all energy beings, so we're all feeling what is going on, and how it is affecting you in your world is, as I burp that through, is personal to you, but we're all still in the same boat of everything going on. Okay. So anyway, I am going to get into this. Okay. Let's just dive into these astrological events. And again, this is not something that I normally talk about, but I really have to talk about this because it's so big. So we're going to just go ahead and get into it. And I have all of these notes that I have taken that I want to address in this episode. So let me take a breath and exhale. Ooh, okay. Now I'm a little calmer. Can you tell? Okay, because I was coming in on two wheels, hot, hot, hot. Let me ground my energy a little bit, okay? So I can say or ask, why is March a powerhouse month? Because that is exactly what March is. March has come in with a vengeance, like a tiger's energy, roaring and pouncing. And astrologically, that is exactly what we are feeling. So, this total lunar eclipse that is happening on March 14th, which is because today is the 11th. So 12th. So what is the 14th? Is that Friday? I could just count in my head. Yeah, it's Friday. So if you're listening in real time and you're listening on Tuesday, it is March 11th. So the total lunar eclipse is coming in on the 14th of March. And what this lunar eclipse is doing is bringing huge emotional breakthroughs. Now, I'm not talking little, minute emotional breakthroughs, okay? I'm talking like soul cry, huge epiphanies where you think you're not at the breaking point, but you get to the breaking point, and so you have this massive emotional breakthrough. That is what this eclipse is bringing, because it's also bringing the revelations that come with the emotional breakthroughs. It's also bringing what the karmic shift is that needs to happen when you have this emotional breakthrough. All right. And I'm going to get into that a little deeper here in just a second. But that total lunar eclipse is happening on Friday. Well, guess what? The very next day, which is Saturday, okay, of this week, we also go into Mercury retrograde in Aries. And so what that is doing is it's a pushing energy that is going to cause us to have to rethink some things, realign what's going on in life, and redo possibly some important decisions. All right. So, this entire theme of this week is just, it's like a woman who's going into labor and actually her water has broken and she is in active labor and the push is happening. That is what's happening this week. So if you're feeling like your sleep is disrupted, if you feel like you're not even in your body half the time because you're flying around in dream time, or you're restless, or you're waking up and you kind of feel like energetically you've just gotten knocked out and hit, well, this is why. Okay? Because this is a very, very powerful week. And what you decide to do with it in your personal life will determine how you're setting yourself up for the next several weeks, months, and into, honestly, the next couple of years. Okay? So let's just get to a truth, a transparency, and an honesty that the cosmic event of this week that we're having, it's going to impact you emotionally, it's going to impact your relationships, and it's going to impact what your personal journey is. And this can be a great thing if you're conscious to the information, if you're conscious and aware to how it is affecting you. All right. So let's go into just a very quick educational piece of what is a lunar eclipse. We hear it all the time, but what is it? And then let's link it to our spiritual journey. A lunar eclipse occurs when the Earth is blocking. There's that word block. Oh boy, here we go. Shelby's about to be on a roll. Yes, I'm talking about myself in third person. Okay. It's when the Earth is blocking the sun's light from being able to reach the moon. And this is where it symbolizes a time where you get to emotionally reset something in your world. So this is a time where you're probably going to feel like you can release something. So you might cry your way through it, okay? You might ethically rage yourself through it somehow, okay? But it's a release. It's also a time of realization, okay, of what's going on in your world. And it's also a huge, massive time of endings. All right? Endings. Now let's think about this. If the earth is blocking the light from the sun to be able to reach the moon, have you ever felt somewhere in life where you are earth and that you're trying to reach something out in front of you, but there's a block? There's a block to that light that you're trying to get to the other side. Like you feel like something's standing in the way, right? So you're earth and you're like, okay, here I am. And let's just make it easy. I'm trying to manifest the car of my dreams. Okay? It doesn't even have to be of your dreams. You're just trying to manifest a car. Okay? And I'm using car because cars represent our energy bodies and Merkabas. Okay? So that's what I saw in my head. So here you are as Earth, and the car is the moon, right? It's this out here in space idea of a thought of something that you want. But you need light to pull in that car, right? So But if the earth is blocking, if you are blocking the light to get to that car, then what happens? Well, the universe conspires around you to figure out what you're blocking from bringing that light in so you can get to the moon or get to the car or whatever this thing is that you want so you can get it to come in, so you can draw it to you. So isn't it interesting that even in a lunar eclipse, if we look at the astrological piece, it is really how even in our human physical world, we do energy with the material world. Okay. So that's why the lunar eclipse is this time to have an emotional breakthrough so you can release something karmically, so you can have this revelation of, oh, this is why this hasn't been able to happen for me because I've had this blocked. So I couldn't bring in the light, which is pure energy, to manifest what I truly want to have come into my world that I say that I want. Because you have to be aligned now to pull it in. Okay. So that's why we go through a release. It's why we go through having to have the realizations. It's why we go through having to have these endings. Okay. So why, and I'm going to circle back on a personal story here in a second with that. But why is this specific lunar eclipse special? Or why is it something we maybe need to pay a little bit more attention to this time around? Well, first of all, the eclipse is in Virgo, and not to confuse you, but the Virgo sign is where there's more structure. It's about having an organizational piece in your life. It's about healing. It's about moving towards self-improvement. Okay? So this lunar eclipse that's in Virgo is saying to you, I need you to structure your life. I need you to get organized right now. I need you to be on the path of healing and self-improvement, which is why this emotional breakthrough is going to happen, which is why your karmic shift is going to happen. Okay? It's why you're going to have all the realizations pop up in your head so you can end what's been holding you back, which is why eclipse is you're eclipsing things out of your world. Okay? It's a closure to something. So the Virgo energy, if it was a person and had a voice, it would say to you, you need to get your life together, sister. Okay? You need to get your life together. Pull it together, get your shit together. Okay? Um, whether you like it or not, pull it together. And that can be a little rough, sometimes because we get used to living in a certain space of mentality or comfort. And then if something comes in to shake it all up, to force us to get our life together, then we're like, oh my God, I'm not used to doing that. But it moves us into action. So we really want to take advantage of this energy that's coming in because it really is putting us all into a different level of action. Even if you don't think you're in action, trust me, somewhere I bet you are. Okay. So here's what you might experience during this total lunar eclipse in Virgo this week. Okay. Because remember, it's Tuesday right now. If you're listening on time, March 11th, and it's coming in on Friday, March 14th. All right. So this is going to give some emotional clarity. So if you have had some hidden emotions, or if there's something in your past that just kind of suddenly hits and makes sense to you, then you know that eclipse energy is working. You're also going to have maybe some shifts in your health or how you do your health, okay, like habit wise. So maybe like what I've been going through, you feel this sudden urge to detox your body or clean up certain routines that you have in your life that maybe aren't healthy for you. You may drop some very toxic cycles that you're running with your health, nutrition, working out, whatever, relationships, emotionally, things like that. But that leads me to that you're going to have some really big revelations, hopefully, in relationships, whether it's romantic, whether it's work related, family related, spouse related, children related, animal related, the relationship with yourself, okay? Because you're going to probably have some unexpected endings, whether you're conscious to them or not. You might have some deep conversations that need to be had. You may realize that there are certain things now that don't serve you, and those things need to move on. Okay. So I'm going to share what's going on in my life because personal stories, in my opinion, are always so much better than just mental information. It's because you really can link um, a story with the information to integrate transformation in your world. So it's easier to understand certain things that are going on. So if you've been listening to any of my podcast episodes over the last several months, you know I have been in this very big process on Joe's side of the family with his mother and her health and how it has affected our world and things that we've been having to do to uh, downsize where she is because of where her life is now and just also dealing with the health side of it. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of emotional stress. And physical stress and mental stress because we're having and have been having to deal with things from so many sides. And but what I can say is that as Joe has been, and he's an only child, so he has to deal with all of it. And as he's been doing that, and I'm his wife and I do what I do, I'm not only helping Joe move through generational healing, but it's also helping me move through an added source of generational healing as well. So there's a lot of emotional breakthroughs that are happening. And the most recent one that we've been dealing with, which has been the one I think we've needed, is I always said to Joe, in his mother's generation and in my mother's generation, they didn't necessarily emotionally heal. Okay? Their time period of when they were raised, the family structure unit that they were raised in, there wasn't a lot of emotional, what I would call maturity or whatnot. Okay? Because they lived a lot in the matrix. And now we're having to emotionally purge. But what I'm noticing is that as we have been having to clear his mother's house and move through all of her personal belongings, even though he and I have been in many, many times over the last year and over the last several years to help her downsize along the way. This last time, because she's not in the house anymore, she never will be, um, you know, and she can't move through any of this stuff. So, of course, what happens when you have a parent who falls ill or is elderly and they no longer can, sustain life on their own and they move into assisted care and things of that nature, but they have all of these earthly possessions that are still existing, then usually the children, grown adults, end up having to come in and handle everything, right? So that's exactly what we've been doing. So we've cleared out so much in the house that we noticed what we considered value, which were some really big pieces of furniture that we figured would have value. Those were the things that were not moving. It didn't matter if we had them up on Facebook Marketplace and we were playing with the prices, right? Like, okay, this one's $1,800. And then we were like, why is this not moving? Okay, maybe that's not what the market wants to pay. Fine, we'll drop it to this 800. Now we're dropping to 500. Now we're dropping to $1 and just say make an offer, right? And we were playing with this for God, the last several months. And we were like, why is this not moving? But yet, if we were to post bookcases, office supplies, random stuff, that we didn't see a lot of value in, it would sell. Like people would come in from the woodwork and fight over these things. Well, I'll pay this. No, I'll pay this. Is this still available? Like there was so much traction. But then it got to furniture, really good, what I call quality furniture, crickets. Or people would be like, I'll pay you 30 for that. And we're like, are you kidding me? Like, this is an antique, or this is like, so we got to this place recently where I said to Joe, I said, okay, these are your mother's belongings. We've been holding a space to receive the utmost value for these items. But the breakthrough that happened was her value was not in those items, in those higher ticket items. Her value was in the knickknacks shit. Okay. She had 9 bookcases in her house. All right. Those sold like hotcakes. She had office supplies that could have supplied 3 different doctor's offices. Okay. She had value in that. Those things sold like hotcakes. But furniture just wasn't her thing. But then I had to realize a lot of the furniture she didn't even buy. Whereas office supplies, she bought those. Bookcases, she bought those. She bought those. She bought supplements. She bought those things. But the furniture she didn't actually buy. It was stuff that was handed down or somebody gave to her. So she didn't have a value in that. And so I said to Joe at one point, I said, okay, well, her energy is not going to help us sell this. So we're going to have to override our energy on her items here to see if they will sell. I've talked about this in another episode. And then they still weren't selling. And then I was like, okay, so that's not working. So now what do we do? Well, the more we kept chiseling and chiseling and chiseling and chiseling the energy, because we kept clearing her house, we kept clearing ourselves. I kept clearing for myself. I kept helping him clear for him, in the feminine. I mean, so we were doing all this clearing. And then finally, I was like, something is wrong. Something is blocked. And we need to play with this because we need to figure out what we're blocking from getting rid of these items. So one morning, I got up and I went on to Facebook Marketplace on Joe's phone because he has it listed on his. I spent 3 hours that morning while he was still asleep redoing the listings. And I opened up the energy because I was ready to have the emotional breakthrough, right? Because I was like done being blocked, right? I need to figure this out. What is wrong with these things not selling? And where is it coming from? And all of a sudden, I dropped the prices and within that 3 hours, traction started happening on Facebook Marketplace. Is this still available? How much? I don't know. Make an offer, or whatever. But what I did is the people who have been inquiring about these specific items, I went back in and said, have you thought about this? What are your thoughts? What is your value? What would you be willing to pay? What are you going to use it for? Because it's a lot of furniture. Are you going to take it and strip it down and resell it? What are you going to do? Can we come to a fair price? Because at this point, we had a deadline of when this stuff needed to move. So I had to go into this market of people that had already, asked about these items. And I had to redevelop relationships, not as one that, is this available? Yes, it is. Da, da, da. But I had to redefine the relationships and conversations with this warm market that we already had going. And then I realized, oh, wow, Joe's energy is in here, which was parts of what he was running because he understands value. And he was that, no, this stuff has value. I don't want to give this away. It has value. And I kept saying to him, it's only worth what someone's willing to pay. And he was like, you're right. And I said, we have tried consignment stores and they will not take furniture, which I thought was really weird, the ones that we were reaching out to. And we're not people that will refinish furniture and resell it. We're not going to do that. We don't have time to do that. And so I was at, we have to shift. And we've got to find the right people that these items can go to where it'll make a difference. Because we're not just selling furniture, right? So I went in and I redefined the relationships. And as I was doing that, I was kicking a lot of Joe's belief systems out of my head, which was, this is really good furniture. I don't want to give it away, basically. Da, 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 da. So I was noticing parts of his brain and my brain. And I was like, oh, I need to move that out. I need to move that out. I need to move that out. And I did so much in that 3 hours that there were these 2 items of furniture that are over 100 years old that were his mother's furniture. And they're very big antique pieces, but nobody wants to pay for them. There is not a market out there. We have gone into all these other markets. I'm like, well, there's a market. I can say that, but nobody's buying them, right? At least not for us. And if they want it for nothing. And so I realized, I was like, okay, your mother, her name is her mother's name, right? So your mother carries the energy of her own mother in name. And a lot of this furniture, or these 2 items specifically that we can't seem to sell, came from her mother. And her other sisters in the family still revel over the mother, even though she's been gone and dead for years. But you hardly ever hear them talk about the father. But boy, they'll put the mother still on a throne. And I'm like, the sisters have never really let the mother go, which means his mother has never let their mother go because she has her name. She has items from the mother. You know what I'm saying? So I literally was chiseling down this massive, huge genealogical route tied to all this furniture. And I'm like, oh my gosh. This is why this stuff isn't selling. Because out here in the collective, because it came from her mother, okay, this is what's holding everything back. And I told Joe, you have to have the breakthrough, which means I have to have the breakthrough because it never happened with your mother. It never happened through the other siblings. So guess what? As fate and luck would have it, you are her son. I happen to be your wife. I am who I am. You are who you are. Guess what? We're going to have to clean the fucking energy. We're going to have the breakthrough. Damn it. Okay, fine. So I kept going to work. And I met a woman And through Facebook Marketplace, she really understood these couple pieces of items. And she was like, gosh, I hope you get the value for it. And the more I talked to her, the more we were connecting. And I said, you know what? Do you want them? And I said, and she's like, I really want you to get the value for it. And I was like, I don't even think that's what this is about anymore. Because I know you know the value, and I know energetically we're exchanging value. So, you know what? You want this? So she asked her husband, they were going out of town actually for a funeral. And the husband said, let's, if it's still available, we'll get it when we get back, And so she's like, I really hope that you sell this, if not, we'll touch base when we get back. And I even said to my husband, I was like, wow, this just does not want to move. Like we're like practically giving it away, and people are like, now. And so I told him, I'm like, okay, we're still not done yet. They're still like, something's still wrong. And so, but two other big items sold: a china cabinet and hutch, and this buffet table. And when that got sold, it was like nothing. I mean, like we got nothing for it. Okay, really. Meaning his mother got nothing for it. And but the beauty of it is that one of the items that sold, the china cabinet and stuff, went to an amazing woman and her husband who are very successful on YouTube in our area, where they find pieces like this, they refurbish them, they modernize them, and they sell them. And she's got like over 86,000 followers on YouTube. I mean, she sells these things and turns them around within 48 hours. And this business happened during COVID when, her husband got unemployed and they had to pay the mortgage. And then just this gift of hers just kind of emerged, and it just became this thing in this business. And they paid off debt in 18 months. They were interviewed by Dave Ramsey. I mean, this is the person that came and bought this, china cabinet. And she's like, so yeah, this is going to be on YouTube because I'm going to refurbish it and resell it. And I knew that because we had this conversation up front, before they actually bought it. And so I was like, well, that's a great way to recycle the energy and use that furniture for good instead of it going into a dump or, something like that. It's going to be made beautiful, right? Like that's good vibes. And so it's those kinds of connections that you make with people that aren't necessarily about the money, right? It's about the relationship. It's about the connection. But if you let the money get in the way, then you lose the karmic shift. You lose the revelation. You lose what the emotional breakthrough is. And then you can't realign your life or, move into a different path of decision making. So this was all stuff that happened just through furniture. That's just one story, okay, that just happened. And I have many of them as we've been going through this process with his mother and her belongings. But I know we want to do right by these items. And so, and that's what we're doing, okay? Because we're healers. So we're out doing our work while other people are benefiting from the things that, we have to offer from his mother's place that probably wouldn't have sold otherwise if we're not moving in our magic, because we learned all of it's outdated. People don't want that color tone of that orange undertone of brown and this and that, and then we learned so much stuff like, yeah, this is outdated, and things that are antiques aren't necessarily that important anymore to the general population because we're over materialized. People don't hang on to their stuff for that long. And then if you can get lucky and find these little groups that, will do that and take those items, but then who are they going to resell to? Because like the whole entire dynamic of when his mother grew up, when my mother grew up, what antiques meant, what they didn't mean, it's literally becoming this thing of the past. It's crazy. And it's why you do have these vendors and antique dealers holding on to these items and making a business out of it, because it's just, people just, they're just, and they don't care unless, you can put it into something nostalgic and make a business and have people pay to come look at it. You know what I mean? But not necessarily buy it. So it's just this weird dynamic we're in as a collective right now because we're letting go of old ways of life, old systems of living, and we're moving into the golden age, and it's not about the stuff. It's more simplified. And so it's just a very interesting time. Okay? So, but I will tell you that because of the work that I had done for those 3 hours and those conversations, I had an emotional breakthrough when I was talking to this woman who was talking about possibly coming and getting the two antique furnitures that was over 100 years old that belonged to his, mother's mother. And when I had that emotional piece come up in me, then that's when I went into the room and woke Joe up. And at that point, it was late. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, and I told him what I'd been doing. And I started crying. And I said, so I'm having the emotional breakthrough of something in your genealogy that came from your mother and her mother and what's around this particular furniture. But it's healing me somewhere because my mother was all about antiques. And they even did estate sales for a while, where they would go in and set up the estate sales and sell the stuff. And, my mom and dad would do that. So I kind of had this background of antiques and value and stuff, from my mother. So I didn't even realize until I was working this for Joe and his mother's estate and her belongings that it was healing me in what my mother had programmed into me, which was I'm going to hang on to all these things because one day it's going to be worth a lot of money. And I had to have an emotional breakthrough where I could rethink what was programmed into me, realign it, and redo these decisions. And then I had to work it through my spouse, okay, and his belief systems, what he was programmed to believe, so he could rethink, he could realign, he could redo, so we as a couple could get to a decision and say, we're willing to let this go. Our ego is letting go. I mean, his mother's already let go. Like, she's not even in the equation of, like, she's so far removed from this stuff, like, it doesn't even matter because it was left on our shoulders. So we had to get to that place and go, okay, because we were doing right by her, but we thought, oh, we have to pull the money in to do right by her. Well, we did pull the money in. We just didn't pull in the money that we wanted to pull in. But yet, the breakthrough that happened, you could not have put a price tag on that. And what? We just let go of several pieces of furniture that we needed to get rid of because the house had to get listed for sale. Okay. And we had a time frame. So it had to move and it couldn't come to our house because we have no space. So we were like, okay. And oh my gosh, y'all, it's been exhausting. I'm not going to lie. It has been so exhausting, but yet somewhere so stimulating at the same time because it's been liberating to release. Okay. And this is where we have had this opportunity. So this is how the energy of this total lunar eclipse is affecting us in our personal life to remove these emotional blockages so we can get to the light that we need that's over here on the moon, so to speak, of what we want our outcomes to be for us to move forward. But until we move through his mother's belongings, her situation, all of these things that were placed upon our shoulder because she didn't handle it before she, declined in her health and now can't do anything with it. Well, this is where we're at. So we've had to do a lot of forgiveness as well. Okay, like, oh my God, because it's holding us back. But is it really holding us back? I would say it's really catapulting us forward because we have this opportunity to clear and break through the generational curses, okay, that have been emotionally probably keeping us back from well, not probably, that have been keeping us from our own outcomes. All right. So this is where you want to get in your awareness. This is where you want to get in your faith. This is where you want to get in your cognitive ability to go, okay, let me go down into this and let me use this to my benefit. Because once you're through it, you're through it. And once we got through that piece, it took us one day to do it. One day. And I'm working with a partner. So imagine how fast you could do it by yourself. Okay. It took us one day as a couple to go down into the energy, have the emotional breakthrough, have my husband release it as well because he wanted me to be able to release, allowed me to open up the energy to receive whatever was coming in so we could make a decision about the bigger scale of what we needed to have happen to where then everybody won in the situation. And then once that happened, it opened up an entire different energy where we could then tackle, the next piece, which was all of the supplements that we had because she had a naturopathic business. So we have all this inventory. So then we were able to now be able to move into that. And then we did that. And then we had then we really got value in supplements and, moving forward and selling the supplements. It was like a 24-hour rebound. And because it opened it up, it opened the energy up. And we were like, oh my God, okay, thank God that happened because now this is opening up over here. And now we're actually being able to sell this because there is a need for it and there's a market for it and people are buying that. So we're able to move that inventory off the shelf, put money back into her account, do these things and get it out of our house, right? So it's been a very interesting total lunar eclipse in our world of what we are experiencing in our personal life, okay? But when you have this benefit of awareness, knowing what we're in when we're in it, you can catapult your life tremendously. And why wouldn't you want to do that? So let's move forward. Okay, I think I'm done with that energy. Okay, so we've been getting our lives together on a whole other way. And our end goal is like, because we want to move, right? We want, meaning physically, like we're looking for land. We have a completely different location that's not around here that we want to move our life to. Okay. And we can't do that until we deal with this life that we've created here to get to that life over there. And a part of that life, his mother is involved. So we have to, honor that process. And so that's what we're doing. And we know when we're done with that and it is what it is, well then we'll be free and we'll be able to move, okay? And go and do what we have planned. So you just have to pace yourself and know that sometimes your ego gets in the way and says, I want this and I want this now. But if it's not time to have it now, then you have to find patience. And that's when you can look at the collective and the astrological events and go, okay, this is what's happening. Let me use the energy this way so you can align, get your ducks in a row, and get where you need to go, okay, at the right time. Because once everything is out of the way, once everything is unblocked, everything just comes in like butter. So now let's talk about the second thing happening the day after the eclipse. That is the Mercury that goes into retrograde in Aries. And this is where you're going to have to rethink things, redo things. But remember, Mercury is all about communication. It's all about travel. It's all about technology, and it's all about what your thought processes are. So that's why when Mercury goes into retrograde, you will hear people say, don't make any important decisions or don't sign contracts because communications get weird because of the way the energy is coming in on the planet. So it messes with our brain, it messes with our mind. But it's the opportunity to learn patience, learn how to communicate better. That's why I have my NLP course, the foundational courses of NLP, because it will literally help you go through things when we're in Mercury retrograde, on top of just being on a normal everyday basis. If you do not have my course in NLP, oh my gosh, you need to go to my website right now, shelbycarino.com, and get it. It is, I'm telling you, it'll change your life. Okay. It changed mine. Travel is affected. Okay. So, flights, whatever. Travel is affected. Technology and your thought processes. But when Mercury goes into retrograde, there's a period of time where things may slow down a bit. Okay. And this is where the miscommunications may happen. This is when we're forced to reflect. So that's why I told my husband, this is why I told Joe, everything we're dealing with in his mother's estate has a time frame. That time frame has lined up with the eclipse. It is lined up with Mercury retrograde, all to the point of when the house goes on the market. Okay. And that's why we're having to push so much of this stuff through now, because we're riding the wave of the energies, because this is when people are in motion. Okay. This is when communication is good right now. But when Mercury goes into retrograde, we already know things may slow down. It may not affect our world, but we don't know. It may affect other people's worlds, which may then affect our world. But we don't know. So our energy runs things ahead of schedule. Okay. But why this particular retrograde may be a little bit more intense this go around is because Aries is usually a very bold, action-oriented sign. Okay? It wants things done, and it wants it done now. It wants it done fast. Mercury retrograde, though, is about slowing down. So there's this interesting thing going on here on Saturday where Mercury wants to slow down, but Aries is saying, no, things need to speed up. So, and you got to have a lot of action. So there might be this balance in the middle that we may experience during this time that it's in retrograde through April 7th. Okay. So you may find yourself getting a little bit more frustrated. Okay, fine. Just take a breath. You may find yourself having a little bit more impulsive reactions where you're just like, fuck it. This is going to happen. Okay, fine. Give yourself grace. And you might have to really learn patience. Like, who doesn't? I swear, every time I feel like I have patience, I learn more patience. Okay, especially when you have a spouse that is impatient. And you're like, patience, babe, patience. Okay, but that's what it is. All right. So here's what you can watch out for. Dog barking. Reese is like, I'm getting in on this episode. I'm going to bark. Be careful if you do make a rush decision that it's aligned, because you don't want it to backfire later on you. So Aries can make us feel very impulsive in our decision-making process. But Mercury retrograde says, hey, wait a minute, slow down, take a breath before you do something. Okay. So make sure if you're going to sign a contract, if you're going to start a big project or something, just be aware. Okay. and make sure you're in alignment. If you've already been doing the alignment way ahead of time and it's time to make the decision, well, that's a whole other story. Okay. Um, Also, watch out for having a short temper or not being able to communicate the thoughts in your head that actually create the misunderstandings that could create somebody to have a short temper, that could create the fight or whatever. Because Aries makes us very blunt, where we just say what we want to say. So be mindful of what's coming out of your mouth. And again, this may be a great time to do my NLP course. Okay. So again, go to shelbycarino.com and click on the courses, which I'm actually doing now as I'm talking to you. And it's called Essentials of Effective Communication. Okay. That might be the course now to get into. Okay. Especially during Mercury retrograde. You'll thank me later. So just also watch out for revisiting old goals that you may have had or old projects that you didn't finish. Okay. Maybe you can finish those things now. So, like for me, when we have been clearing out his mother's house, there's things that obviously we've gotten rid of. And then there's things that, we couldn't get rid of that we had to bring to our house because we had to, you know, go through the step and say, is this valuable? It doesn't need to be sold. Is it an heirloom? We've had to go through these steps. And there was this one thing that his mom had for the long years. Okay. In this huge purple bin. Okay. And it was all of this, we didn't know if it was pewter, if it was sterling silver, but or if it was just, silver plated, whatever. And it was back in the time when people would gift, these pieces of dining, you know, urns and plates and, all these things. Well, it had sat in his mother's garage for her whole life. Okay, pretty much since she married his dad. And she did nothing with it. And it just sat there. And I was just like, oh God, he's going to inherit this. Well, he did. And then it came to our garage. And then it was sitting in our garage. And just recently I said to him, I used the energy of the eclipse and I said, okay, we need to move this and we need to move this now. So we need to go find if it's valuable, if it's worth anything. Are we going to get rid of it? What are we going to do? Because your mom didn't do anything with it and now we got to do something with it. So right then and there, we made a quick decision, found a place to take it, look at all of this stuff that we had, and we were able to move it and got value out of it. And I was like, thank God, because I told him, if we don't do something about this right now, because it was a project, right? If we don't do something about this right now, when all of this energy continues to move and open up and blah, 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 and our whole world opens up and we see the moon because the light is shining again, well, guess what? We're not going to want to deal with this. He's like, you're right. I said, because we're going to be over here on the moon, right? With our new land, car, whatever we're going to do. We're not going to want to deal with this over here. So we got to deal with it now. And we did. And we were on it, action oriented, took care of it, got done with it. Boom. Total reframed it. Did not have time for procrastination. But boy, was it really like, we were just like, we just want to sit on the couch and watch a movie. And we're like, no. So we have been because we understand time frame. Okay. So this might be a time to take something you haven't been able to do that you just keep pushing to the corner and get it done. All right. So how do you handle all this energy coming in? Well, you want to pause before you react to something. Okay. Because Aries makes us impulsive and Mercury retrograde says, hey, take a breath. Triple check what you're saying, triple check messages, triple check your emails. Okay. Make sure there's no miscommunication going on. And then use time to self reflect. All right. Instead of forcing something to happen, there's a difference between having inspiration that moves you into action, but then there's another thing when you're trying to force it and it doesn't feel right, because then you need to step back and reflect, like I did for those 3 hours that one morning when I was going back into the conversations in Facebook Marketplace, because I knew I needed the emotional breakthrough. So I was drawing in energy and conversation to help me get to the breakthrough. And then once I had the breakthrough, all of the action steps happened after that because it opened it up. But I had to go through those steps and I was frustrated. Okay. I was short tempered with myself, but I hung in there and I got what I needed. And then it was able to move Joe. Okay. And all he got to do was sleep an extra 3 hours, why it took me time to move it. So these energies work together. What's coming in with this total lunar eclipse, what's coming in with Mercury retrograde, because it's one day apart, it's basically like a cosmic 1-2 punch, right? It's like 1-2 punch, right? It's because the lunar eclipse clears the emotional baggage and it makes space for something new. Whereas Mercury retrograde slows us down a little bit so we don't rush into something that could possibly be the wrong step for us. So, in your personal growth, what you can expect through this cosmic 1-2 punch of the total lunar eclipse and Mercury retrograde is if something unexpected ends in your world, then have the trust that it's meant to leave. Because remember, eclipses eclipse things out of your life. And if you feel stuck, if you feel frustrated, it's the universe's way of telling you, slow down. Take a minute, take a breath, and reevaluate what's going on. Okay? Because this is a time of transition. This is not a time to just force a new beginning to happen. It's a transition. And you don't want to miss any steps in the transition. So, how do you navigate this energy as we close off this episode? Well, embrace the energy of the eclipse that's coming. And you probably have already been doing it, because just because it comes in on the 14th doesn't mean like, oh, today's the day I have to embrace it. Okay. You've been embracing it the whole time as it's getting closer to closer, as it's getting closer, to it actually happening. So if you're a journal person, journal about what's been weighing you down emotionally. Okay. Create a ritual, light a candle. Like even in this podcast episode, I have a candle lit over here. Okay. That's kind of my little ritual when I'm moving through the energies. Write down what you're releasing. If you want to go out back and burn it safely in a chimenea or something like that, write it down, burn it, release it, whatever. Take extra care of your body, since Virgo is all about health. Okay. Take that time to get yourself on maybe a good nutritional supplement line, or, change a little bit of how you eat and your patterns of what you're eating, or, add some working out to your routine, whatever. Just be aware of that. Check out your health if you haven't had your health checked and you're worried about something, but use the energy to move that. And then how you work with Mercury retrograde is, if you have a delay, like we have, be patient, okay? Because Mercury protects you from having a misstep. And you don't want to miss any steps, okay? So I've been saying that to Joe as I've been feeling all this energy coming in. Like, let's slow down a minute. Let's get it together. Let's breathe. Let's figure out what's going on, because we don't want to miss any steps. All these things will go to the right people. The right things will happen. Let's just, we don't want any missteps. Okay. And that's what keeps you aligned, is when you slow down and you're patient if something is taking a little longer to happen. So use the time to revisit any old project you have, any old ideas you may have. Make sure your communication is mindful. Don't just snap at people to snap at people. Okay. Sign up for my Essentials of Effective Communication course on my website. You'll thank me later. And just allow this energy to transform you. Because remember, we're moving into the golden age. What has been is not what's going to be. So we have to lose a lot of old programming, a lot of old ways of how we view things, see things, in our perspectives, our belief systems. I mean, we're having to let go of so much right now to make way for what the golden age is about. So receive from this episode today that the month of March is about emotional breakthroughs and slowing yourself down just a little bit, not too much, to just reflect. But stay in action, okay? So I'm going to leave you with this. Think about for the month of March and with the eclipse and retrograde coming in, what are you feeling pulled to release during this eclipse? And then how has Mercury retrograde affected you in the past if you were even aware we were in retrograde? Okay. You may not even know that you've been affected. Okay. That's fine. So take all this information, share this episode on your social media platforms or with a friend. It can help them, which can help you, because the more people that are aware, the better off we are. And if you share this on social media, hashtag Shelby Radio. Thank you for doing that. And I will be back next week with, I don't even know. Because I am really, oh, Reese is barking again. Because I am really just in moment to moment right now. And I know this is a big week. And I even told Joe this morning, I said, we just have to move through this week. There's a really big push of energy. And let's just line everything up. And if we get tired or, whatever, let's keep each other accountable so we can get these daily tasks done that need to get done, because we need to ride the wave of the energy to get to our outcome. And that's us being on the moon, right? Because we're emotionally breaking through the generational line. Okay. So that light can shine so we can see what we need to see to get where we need to go next. So we're just lining up with the cosmic event of the planet. Okay. That's all we're doing. That's all you're doing. Just be aware and work it into your personal life. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it there. I am just a tad bit over an hour, but I will be back same time, same place next week. Thank you for tuning in, and good luck this week with the eclipse and retrograde. So I'll be back next week. Take care.